Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog, and I did not expect to be making a second video today, but want to make a response video here to Rusty Buckets. Jacob made a video saying that the NBA draft is overrated, and that teams should explore trading their draft picks for guys that are already established to win again, to be a good team again. And some cases it works, like the 2008 Boston Celtics. Sometimes it doesn't work, like the 2011-2012 Brooklyn Nets. And what I really think, I understand what Jacob's trying to say, but I disagree that the NBA draft is overrated. I'm going to say that. I'm not here to, be condescending to him. I'm not, here to shoot him down or anything. But this is one of those videos where it's like, I'm making this video simply because I don't think Jacob understands the value of a draft pick. And the reason I'm saying that is because if I were an NBA GM, I would never in my life trade away all of my draft picks unless I was getting a guy that was going to put my team over the top. Okay? If you're going to trade draft picks just to make your team solid again, or make your team just a playoff team, like what the Chicago Bulls have done, it's not worth it. And I'm going to tell you why it's not worth it. Because the Chicago Bulls, okay, granted they got, what's his name, Ayo Dosunmu or whatever in the draft, who has been very good. He was like the steal of the draft, if you ask me, or at least one of the steals of the draft. The Chicago Bulls are not better than the Golden State Warriors. They're not better than the Milwaukee Bucks. I would argue to say I don't know if they're even better than the Phoenix Suns. Okay? So they traded away draft capital to get guys just to be a competitive team. Granted, DeMar DeRozan was a very nice signing for them, a nice sign and trade, but it's just the idea that DeMar DeRozan, nobody would have anticipated that DeMar DeRozan would have an MVP season this year. Okay. In fact, I would argue it's kind of a fluke. I really don't think DeMar DeRozan's going to have a season like this again next year where he's in the MVP conversation. DeMar DeRozan's always been a solid player, but is he better than Giannis? Is he better than Kevin Durant? Is he better than Nikola Jokic? Is he better than Joel Embiid? No. Okay. But when you look around the league, okay, the teams that are rebuilding, they have something to build around, don't they? Because they kept their draft picks. Now, if we look at a couple teams, okay, there's a reason why draft picks are valued so much. And, there's a reason Sam Presti wants all your draft picks. There's a reason that, like Sam Presti ended up on the Bernie Sanders meme where it's like, I'm once again asking for your draft picks. There's a fucking reason for it. The reason is because, first of all, there's a couple varying factors that go into this. The first being your situation. What is your team's current situation? The second being, how good is your scouting department? Okay? Is your team good at drafting, or are they shitty at drafting? And that determines, I think, whether or not you should trade your draft picks or not. Because if you look at some teams around the league, some teams got some really good generational talent for hanging on to their draft picks. For example, the Memphis Grizzlies, okay? They drafted Ja Morant. Do you think if they traded their draft picks, their potential Ja Morant pick, let's say, right? And I understand that not all prospects work out, okay? Kevin Knox was drafted fucking 9th overall in the 2018 NBA draft and is an obvious fucking bust, okay? But it's the idea that for teams like the Indiana Pacers, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Utah Jazz, okay? Teams that are not big market teams, the only way for them to get a superstar player, the New Orleans Pelicans, okay? The only way for these teams to get a superstar player is through the NBA draft. And that's why it is such a sought after, and yeah, I guess you could say it's a little overrated, but not by much. It's not as overrated as Jacob is making it out to be, where teams should be trading their draft picks for, guys that are already established. I understand that, but the circumstance of your team matters. Okay? If your team is one piece away from being a championship contender, yeah, trade your fucking draft picks and get the guy. Okay? Like, for example, the Los Angeles Rams, all they needed was a quarterback. They traded their entire future away for Matthew Stafford, and it paid off because they were one step away. The Chicago Bulls are not in that situation. There's a lot of teams in the NBA that are not in that situation. The Sacramento Kings are not in that situation. The New York Knicks are not in that situation. There's a lot of teams that are not in that situation. And in fact, most teams aren't in that situation where they can just trade their draft assets and, automatically become a championship contender. Even the Golden State Warriors, who, have Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, they drafted Moses Moody and kept him on the roster, and Jonathan Kuminga, or whatever. They didn't trade their draft picks, even though they could have, and probably gotten somebody really good. I don't know who, but, they have James Wiseman still. They're a team that kept their draft picks when they didn't need to, and it's paying off for them. Jordan Poole has been very good for them. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that, even without draft picks, pick up good players. Miami is a perfect example of that. The Miami Heat, they pull guys out of the fucking woodwork every year, it seems, that nobody's ever heard of, and they end up being major contributors on their team. Kendrick Nunn, okay, his second year in Miami, shot 48% from the field, 38% from three, 93% from the free throw line, and scored 14.5 points per game as an undrafted guy that they signed. Duncan Robinson, $70 million three-point shooter. Okay, Max Strus this year has been a fucking gunslinger for the Miami Heat from three. You look at guys like even going as far back as to Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson was a second-round pick and is still in the league today. Most second-round picks don't pan out, but Miami's scouting department is so fucking good that they found a diamond in the rough. For example, Oklahoma City. They drafted Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. And regardless of what you think of Russell Westbrook, I'm a huge Russell Westbrook hater, obviously, at this point. But how often is it that your scouting department is so good that you draft 3 future league MVPs? I mean, that's unheard of. They drafted Domantas Sabonis, who is now a solid player. Granted, he's not the best player they've ever drafted, but it really comes down to, do you have a good scouting department, and what's your team's current situation? Because not every team, there's a reason why teams in the league don't do that more often. And that's my main point for this video, is the idea that there's a reason why teams don't trade their draft picks for guys that are already established, unless it puts them in a win-now situation. And I would even argue that even if it puts you in a win-now situation, unless it's a guaranteed you're going to win the championship now situation, you shouldn't trade your draft picks. Because let me tell you what a draft pick provides. Okay? I get it. Not everybody in the draft is a bona fide superstar. Not every guy you draft number 1 overall is going to be good. Obviously, every year we see the NBA draft, and 2 or 3 years down the line, we could say, well, if we redrafted this draft, this was the guy we would have taken first. But here's the thing, okay? One draft pick, if you have a first round pick, right, and you draft a guy with it, chances are that guy's going to be on your roster for the next 7 to 8 years, and that beats the fuck out of having a guy on your roster for the next 2 or 3 years, maybe 4. Okay? And the reason for that is because not only are you getting a young guy, whereas if you're trading for somebody who's already established, they've been in the league for a while, which, granted, you know what you're getting, but at the same time, it's like you could get a kid who's 19, 20 years old, and you have him for 7 or 8 years. By the time he's ready to leave, okay, he's 26, 27 years old. You've had him, okay? You not only get him, okay, you get to develop him. Chances are you give him a rookie contract extension. He's going to sign it. The rookie's going to sign it because it's a guarantee. It's the most money they've ever seen in their lives up until that point. We got Michael Porter Jr. getting a $200 million contract, and Trae Young and Luka Doncic. These dudes are getting $200 million contracts, okay? And the best part is It's uncontested. They don't have to compete with the open market for these guys. That's why draft picks are so valuable. That's why teams value draft picks so highly. That's why teams look to rebuild through the draft, is because they can get a guy, develop him, see what he's going to be, and they can say, okay, the 3 years is up. We're going to re-sign you. And then even if they don't, even in free agency, they're a restricted free agent. So they can go out there and say, well, for example, Zion Williamson. Perfect example. Zion has not played this year. He's not going to, okay? He's already made an all-star team in his second or third year into the league, just like LaMelo Ball for the Charlotte Hornets. You think the Charlotte Hornets would have gotten a guy like LaMelo Ball by trading their draft picks? No, fuck no. But for teams like Charlotte, that's the only way they get a superstar player. And LaMelo Ball, one day, I think, is going to be a superstar player. But it's the idea that even if a guy like Zion Williamson, right? Back on because I'm all over the place. Zion Williamson hasn't played this year. He's up this summer, I think, for his rookie contract extension, because his rookie contract's going to end, and he wants a contract extension. The Pelicans can let Zion Williamson go into the free agent market as a restricted free agent, see what the market is for Zion Williamson, and say, okay, I want to match that deal. And if the Pelicans match the fucking deal, they get to keep Zion Williamson. So that's why this is a big deal. That's why draft picks are such a big deal. That's why teams don't trade their draft picks for an already established guy, because the potential of signing a young guy and having him for 7-8 years, the upside is way higher than taking a guy who's already established, who you don't know if is, unless, you don't know if he's going to put you over the top or not. And, chances are he's going to be off your roster in 2 to 3 years anyway. Or you trade him for something, or he doesn't pan out. At least with a prospect, you can put him in the G League. Okay? Jalen Green, a guy who came out of G League playing pretty well for fucking Houston this year. Okay? There's been a ton of guys to come out of the G League who either went undrafted or, were drafted to teams like Moses Moody. The Warriors drafted Moses Moody and let him tear up the fucking G League before they decided to put him on the roster. Dude was wrecking havoc in the G League. Okay? He clearly is not a G League player. And, you have guys like Fred VanVleet. Okay? Hassan Whiteside. There's been a lot of guys to go into the G League and come out and be very good. And my main purpose for this whole video is the idea that I understand what Jacob is saying. I understand what Rusty Buckets is saying as far as the draft is overrated, as it's like a narrow mind of thinking for teams to rebuild their team, or, this is how they get better. But for a lot of teams, it's the only way they get a Zion Williamson. It's the only way they get a Joel Embiid. It's the only way they get a Jason Tatum. Okay? And not for nothing, but the upside is way better than, you could have a guy on your roster for 7 to 8 years when you draft him, as opposed to trading a draft pick for a guy that you might have on your roster for 2 to 4, and then he's gone. Or, he's getting older and is not what he used to be. So, I don't know, man. That's just it. That's just my take on it. That's my opinion. I don't necessarily disagree with Jacob's video as a whole. Like, I understand what he's trying to say, but most times that's not going to work out for most teams. Okay? Unless they're a team that is on the cusp of winning a championship, they have enough around them to win. Unless you can put together a core that is like unbeatable and surefire, it has the opportunity to win you a championship. Trading your draft picks for already established guys is not a smart idea unless you're getting a superstar player. And that's just my opinion on it. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more. I've been the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.